From deep in the Burbank Media District, it's time for another edition of My Burbank Talks. This podcast is presented by the staff of myBurbank. Now, let's see what's on today's agenda as we join our program.
Hey everybody, Craig Sherwood here once again with you for another exciting week of the week that was and the week that will be, of course, along with, there we are, holy cow.
Wow, I'm glad I could find my glasses to find out where I am.
Wow.
I could have just made the noise.
Along with our contributor, Craig Durling, tonight also. Craig, how you doing?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. Good to see you again. Good to be back in Studio 1A.
Sorry for the fumbling around the beginning, but sometimes that happens and you have to live with it.
Settle in.
We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter right now, so sit back and enjoy the next hour of all the current events going on in our city.
There's a lot going on.
Yep. Let's start off with last week, last Wednesday, there was actually a little bit of a police activity with a stabbing at near the Wendy's Drive-Thru. Well, actually, what happened is Ross, you actually went and covered it. Why don't you give us a rundown on what happened and
well, if everybody in the city doesn't know where Wendy's is, it's over in the Empire Center. And on the Victory side, apparently, after everything settled down, found out that apparently two transients got into an argument at the Empire undercrossing, right off the freeway entrance to the to the southbound I-5, and they found some evidence there, like a pretty big puddle of blood. And they first got called to Wendy's by an employee that there said somebody's in their drive-thru, says he's been stabbed and cut. So it didn't go out. It went out as an unusual call. Fire department rolled on it. And to us, it sounded like
something's going on here.
Something's going on. So I responded from...
First unit arrived on scene and said, well, we don't have a victim, but we have a blood trail. And they started to follow the blood trail down the street and found the man who'd been stabbed, and I guess numerous times.
Right. So Burbank paramedics, along with Engine 13, took care of him and took him to a trauma center with numerous cuts and so forth. And they set up a very large crime scene. I got there as they were putting up the police crime tape, and they must have run at least 2.5 miles of that tape, because they put it all the way around Wendy's. It was all evidence, possible evidence. So they closed off the entrance there. This was like 10:30 or 11. So
about 11:30, actually, yeah.
Most of the businesses had started to close. So they closed off that entrance, and they started looking. And they had a kind of a description. They changed its description
numerous times.
Several times, yeah.
They couldn't find anybody that night, and they did put a release out saying that two transients had got in an argument and one got stabbed. This happened on Empire below the I-5 freeway underpass, correct?
Correct.
Is where the actual stabbing took place.
Yeah, under the.
So it was not in the Empire Center. So don't worry about if you're in the Empire Center, you know.
That's just where he walked to.
That's just where he walked to from the underpass.
The victim.
And the police put out a release the next day saying they did find the suspect and arrested him.
Well, they found the suspect. First, the description was he walked toward Lockheed. They had officers out, numerous. Everybody says, they don't have that many officers at night. They stopped one gentleman, and I saw 12 police cars. So they have plenty of police cars out at night. They couldn't find him. The next morning, detectives started working the case, and they found transient matching this description with a backpack at Buena Vista in Victory, and they took him into custody. He admitted right there that he not only had the weapon on his in his backpack, but he admitted that he got into a fight last night and stabbed somebody. So he's being held on, I think it was a couple $1 million bail.
Yeah.
The victim survive, or?
Victim was transported to a trauma center and remained in the hospital for a couple days. We don't know if they're still there, but it's.
But he did survive. Yes, he's not. It was not a fatality.
It just kind of gets you. Two transients, they get Usually, sometimes they're drinking, they're on drugs,
or territorial
whatever.
too. You know,
Very.
so
Well, we see in the news almost daily now in cities across America where there's people walking by and get stabbed or attacked by transients. Very unpredictable.
absolutely.
So that was a good. I mean, when I say good, none of it's good. But Burbank PD jumped on it quick, and people have to realize that the city is really safe. When you have that many officers working on it, the guy's off the street, the other guy's going to be healed and get back out. But
It's a good response and a typical one by Burbank PD.
yeah, exactly.
So also on Wednesday we had a police commission meeting, and of course the police commission is so active and does so many things and everything else. And Ross, you watched a little of that meeting. Why don't you tell us what the police commission accomplished this week?
Well, it kind of got me. The chairman wasn't there, Mr. Coombs, so Ramak chaired the meeting, and they just, they brought up some things. They're working on a timeline of meetings and how they can request information from the department. And the chief got up and made it real clear, when you guys want a report or information on something, that takes manpower, not only from his executive secretary, who the police commission kind of answers to, but when you ask an officer, that officer is doing something else. So when they want to know, a report that they've been asking for a long time, it takes a lot to get that information. And when you talk about officers' time, the chief kind of said, we have to look at budget-wise, too, of how much time we're putting together for these reports. They also talked about the convention that they go to once a year, and there was really nothing much that the chief reported out on, and the meeting wrapped up pretty quick.
If there's nothing to talk about substance on their agenda, they should just cancel the meeting, because that's not only officers, the chief have to be there, so does city staff, and somebody from the city attorney's office and everybody else. And you know what? If you don't need to meet, then don't meet.
Well, it was kind of strange because usually Gina O, who's the assistant city attorney, is always at all the police commission meetings. She was off, and so they had a different city attorney, and he was quick on looking stuff up on the computer. I mean, one of the commission members, brought something up, and he had brought it up. But again, I understand where they're coming from, but just the extra
my problem
work.
is, what do they do with the information once they get it? They don't seem to do anything with it except saying, "Oh, thank you for the report. We appreciate it." And so does the 15 people watching the meeting at home. And to me, it's not serving unless they have something they can approve or send a memo to the council or do something, take some kind of actionable position with something. Then I think, hey, absolutely.
Well, I think they, in their mind, they're put on the police commission. They have to do something. But if you really watch the meeting, you kind of wonder and scratch your head, what got done tonight?
Yeah.
And I get it. So
Well,
let's move on to
let's
Thursday.
move on to
'Cause
Thursday.
That was just as exciting.
the school board actually met in a special session, and it was really about talking about financial assistance that they need to get, possibly from the county. And the reason they need to get that authorized is because sometimes the state does not send the tax money when they're supposed to send it, and they need a Band-Aid fix to get through until the state sends them the money. This has nothing to do with any budget deficits or anything else, or it's just it's a matter of housekeeping. But before the meeting, once again, numerous people went up to speak to the board, all talking about the Horace Mann situation. So we looked it up a little bit to try to figure out why this has become such a big thing. Number one, a flyer was passed around. It was kind of a scare tactic because everybody got scared that they're going to all of a sudden put a 10-unit apartment building into the Horace Mann area or something, or some kind of outlandish thing. And basically, it's about AB 2295. AB standing for Assembly Bill. And basically, what it says is they passed it, once again, the state telling the local jurisdictions and local cities how to run their cities and how to make things better. But they put in a AB 2295 basically says that A project must have at least 10 housing units and be on a vacant parcel in an area that is already largely developed. It also must be adjacent to a partially zoned residential. Districts no longer have to convene an advisory committee when they want to sell, lease, or rent surplus property because of this piece of legislation. The bill also exempts the district from property tax on the complex too. So basically, what they're saying is school districts can now go into the housing business, with the primary reason to provide housing for their teachers. But to me, do we want our school board involved in housing projects? Is that where we're going next? And of course the school board. And I was a little surprised because the school board talked about this at length during the response to comment, during the response to the oral comments. I'm going, it's not on their agenda. How can they discuss this like this and make statements the way they're making them? But they really don't have a city attorney there, monitoring their meeting. So they spent a lot of time talking about it. And once again, not on the agenda, so they really can't make any decisions. But they said, look, they're in a study process. They're just going to study the situation. No decisions have been made. If they do anything, everybody's going to be the first to know type thing.
Well, I did hear they are going to very clearly, 30 days before, put out either a general, an email. They're going to let everybody know 30 days before. So whenever they have that meeting and discuss things.
Well, I hope their communication system, because we're right now not receiving emails from the district on news items. So hopefully that's going to, and besides, you can't just email the parents in that area. You've got to email every resident, because just because you don't have a kid doesn't mean that you have property right next to that school or something. So, I mean, it's a big ball of wax, but, it's not being tackled now. And when we find out about it, we will let you all know.
That same night, it was a busy last week.
Yes, it was.
And there was a, what do you call it, an informal gathering?
Yeah, information, about bears at the Nature Center.
Our animal shelter.
No, informational.
Yeah.
And they had a couple of dozen people there. Some people might have seen it on the news. It was on, I think, 2, 4, 5, 7, 11 were all there reporting on it. But as the people from the state, Fish and Game and so forth, they're not coming in and relocating bears. They made it very clear that is not their intention.
You're just giving us the bare facts here, huh? I couldn't resist.
I'm quicker than the button sometimes.
But they made it real clear that, these bears, these are black bears. They're not grizzly bears. Black bears are probably, the least that you need to worry about. You scare them, and so forth. But, they gave recommendations. And apparently we had Ashley Erickson cover it for us. There's a very, very thorough article in myburbank.com about it, the recommendations. Apparently they're working with the city on how to secure their trash cans, how to secure their property. There was one tenant that was pretty vocal about, and she was also vocal at city council last week, wanting the bears to be moved out. It's not going to happen. Apparently they know it's a mother and 2 cubs, and the cubs are getting to the age that they're starting to go out on their own and so forth. But, you live up in Country Club. I've talked to people. You get above Sunset Canyon. Folks, if you live in the flatlands of Burbank and you have not taken a trip to Big Bear lately, you could save your time, go up Olive, past Sunset Canyon, and go take that 2-lane highway all the way to the top of Sunset to Country Club Drive. And if you don't feel that you are in the middle of wilderness.
Well, I know if you drive up to Stow Canyon Nature Center and you're driving by DeBell Golf Course in the mornings,
there's deer.
You will see deer all over the golf course. I mean,
that is their home. We call it, in the wildfire business, we call it the wildland urban interface.
Yeah.
It's where people meet wildlife and wilderness, and you have to learn to live with that. And I think the people that live further up the hill are a little more accustomed to dealing with that. 95% of the time, you have a bear coming into an area where it's just people living or working. It's food. It's a food source.
Yep.
So you seal up your trash cans. You don't leave the apple pie cooling on the windowsill like in the Leave It to Beaver days.
And don't leave your dog run around outside.
No, well, and coyotes too.
Yeah.
You're leaving small pets outside. The coyotes
and they kind of
coyotes
gave
will come
them
in.
what you should and shouldn't do. I guess one lady that lived up there, she put her clothes in the laundry, turned around, there was a bear standing behind her. She scared it. It went out. But like I said, majority of the people up there have said the bears were here a lot longer before us. They have moved up there to be up in that wilderness. They're used to raccoons. They're used to coyotes. They're used to bobcats. They're used to bears. I had talked to our old animal shelter superintendent the other day, Fred DeLang, and I said, Fred, in your whole career of 30 years with the city of Burbank, did you ever deal with a bear? And he said, in his whole 30 years, they never dealt with bears up there. And they're coming looking for, like you say, food and water.
Yeah. And something you mentioned earlier, if you see a brown or grizzly bear in Burbank, it probably escaped from a zoo. But the yelling, the scaring of the bear to scare them away is officially known as hazing. You haze the bear to make it afraid of people without injuring it. But, if you got cubs with a bear, the worst thing you can do is get between the mama
don't get
and
near
the
that
babies.
bear.
Don't get between them. That's
Right.
the biggest thing. You may not know you're between them, but if you see a little cub in your yard and you're thinking, oh, what a cute little fuzzy bear, you don't see mom, that mom's around there somewhere.
She's watching.
Oh.
Definitely watching, and you don't want to startle bears.
I saw a picture of somebody.
You want to see them first.
Yeah, the bears are scared of us as we are of them too. They don't want to deal with us.
And that's the situation with most wildlife. I have a little experience with wildlife, being a photographer, but in most cases, unless they're already hunting you, if they're already predatory in nature and have you targeted, which you're probably the last to know about it, if that's the case. Otherwise, in a case like Burbank, anywhere in town, whether it's a bear, a coyote, a raccoon, a deer, whatever, you're going to be just running into each other. You're going to be bumping into each other. It's going to be, chances are, pretty random. And they want, for the most part, nothing to do with you.
Yeah, I saw a picture the other day. Somebody was having a picnic up in Wildwood, and they're shooting their table. Their people, and in the background, a bear's cruising by. They didn't even realize it. And you know what? They stayed.
All is well.
All is well.
Yeah.
And for those of us who don't know about, I don't know much about animals at all, but about 30 years ago, I'm coming home one time, and I see this giant rat on the sidewalk around midnight, 1 a.m., and I'm going, look at the size of that rat. And so I'm rushing, I'm getting my camera out, I've got to get pictures. It's a possum. But to me, I thought it was a giant rat. Yeah, we've also got skunks who walk down our street.
Yeah. There are no walls around Burbank. There are no fences, no walls. So anything that wants to roam in,
and we're kind of surrounded by mountains,
certainly can. Absolutely.
And I know Universal Studios, they've got deer on their lot too. When
I used to be affiliated with the Burbank Police Range up in Wildwood Canyon, I mean, there'd be deer walking around the range all the time, all kinds. You never surprised when you saw wildlife up there. But do you remember? You should have asked your friend this question: if he ever ran into a tegu.
That's true.
Remember that one?
Yeah, when we lived.
Now, what's a tegu? What's a tegu?
It's a big lizard, but we only learned it's like an alligator, like a small alligator.
We're talking 5 foot.
That's small? That's a small.
Yeah, well, as far as alligators go.
We didn't know at the time. We lived at the corner of Olive and Kenneth, and somebody saw this, what they said was an alligator going into the
storm
sewer.
drain down on Glen Oaks or something like that.
And I remember the animal shelter came out, the fire department came out, Public Works came out. They finally put enough water in all the sewers up on above it, and they washed it to where they had maps of where the one sewer would be.
That one animal control guy pulled it out and showed us what a tegu was.
Yep, I remember going to the shelter, and he had it. It was somebody's pet, they said. at one time.
That happens
It would
a lot.
it would have to be, I guess. But I mean, I just as
I can't
an,
imagine tegus are native to the Burbank Hills.
I didn't mean to derail the conversation, but I thought it was
Oh, it's a great
anecdote.
It's a
since
great anecdote, absolutely. You know, it's something. It's part of Burbank's history in some
you
way.
never know when you'll see a tegu in Burbank.
So if you are live up there, didn't hear about it, you can go to the Parks and Rec page. They have on what you should do, what you can do. It was a great talk. Like I said, you can go to myburbank.com. Ashley put exactly what the professionals suggested to do. So
Do we know if that talk was recorded?
yes,
It was.
it was streamed, and you can see it on the Parks and Rec channel.
Great. Perfect.
Okay. Also on Thursday, a busy day last week, we had a little bit of an anniversary here in Burbank of the Olive Plaza, which is located right across from Olive Park. Or I'm sorry,
The other one up on the hill.
I'm sorry, it's up on the hill. I was thinking where all the tenants are being evicted from right now. Sorry about that.
But nobody's being
No. Nobody's being evicted from Olive Plaza, not at
No.
all. But it's a senior living place, and they celebrated 20th anniversary of being there. And once again, Ross being everywhere was there.
Well, it was that. If a lot of people in Burbank remember that as Burbank Community Hospital.
That's
BCH.
right, BCH.
And for many years, it was BCH, and then it was Thompson Memorial,
Yes.
and then it had closed, and it was being rented out for TV shows, and the owner of that was the city, and Michael Cusimano, said that him and his wife Caroline would drive down Olive and look at this empty piece of property and said, wouldn't that be a great place for a senior residence? Him and the city negotiated, and he bought the land, and he built 20 years ago. They have a couple hundred residents in there. They celebrated. They served them hamburgers. They had a casino night. They had a DJ. They had a dessert table. They really partied it up. There are 20 people that live there that moved in 20 years ago. A couple of those people said they were born at Burbank Community Hospital, and it's funny because they said
Never left.
well, they said we'll probably die
Oh, jeez.
on the same piece of property. But they presented them with certificates and awards, and all those residents really liked it. There were several city, Jess Telemontes was there, Patrick, Judy was there, assistant city manager, Mike Cusimano, like I said, and
You hear all these things lately. Oh, the landlords are mean. The landlords are this, landlord. But, Mike Cusimano, puts his money behind what he does, and he has an appreciation for the city. He is part of the city. He's not an outsider. He is invested in our city, personally and professionally.
well, I know that unit, it's run by Jessa Freemeyer, who I know quite well. We're friends in Rotary. All her tenants love her. My mother was in one of Mike Cusimano's other buildings down on Olive, the first one you talked about,
Right.
across from Olive Rec, 1100. And I'll tell you, Renee ran that building. They know how to take care of their tenants. Our seniors in this town don't get neglected. I mean, they have parties for them, and they do a lot of things. So it was a nice way to celebrate 20 years.
Absolutely. Moving on to Friday, our mayor put together a comedy show at the Colony Theater to support the writers with 100% of the proceeds, of the food, of everything, ticket sales, going to the writers' fund, which, is nice of him to do. We were not able to attend it, but I know he talked about it on his show last week and was said he probably had some celebrity. He was going to get up and do a comedy routine too, I think. So,
Well, he is a funny guy, right?
As mayor of Burbank, you become pretty popular, and he put that together, and he was going to have. I don't know the celebrities that he had, but it's a nice touch to, he is thinking about the writers and a lot of Burbank people. might have come out for it and put some money together.
Forgive me for not paying attention, as I'm often accused of, but for last week, the writers weren't out picketing, or at least for a few days, so I thought maybe the strike was over, but then they were out again today. So.
I think they target certain areas.
They had a big rally last week.
Right, they had a big rally.
Downtown, MacArthur, no, not MacArthur Park, Lemon Park. It was down over the hill. I forget exactly where, but I saw it on the news. They were trying to get all their people to show mass at one or two places. So.
Oh, okay. So, well, anybody that lives near Warner Brothers and the different studios in town, if you noticed why it was quiet for a few days, I guess that was it. I was wondering. Thanks for explaining that.
Yep.
It's good to know you guys. Wealth of information.
That's why we're here. Moving on to Saturday. Saturday we had the Civitan Day and Ponytail Jamboree at Isay Park. It was a great turnout, like always. They started with their parade coming down Clark Street, and it's a great community day. It's too bad that they've really shrunk everything down. It used to be Civitan Day on one Saturday, the Ponytail Jamboree on the next Saturday, with a lot of things, and the parade was a lot longer. And I remember participating in it, over 50 years ago, and it was fun. The whole team, we all get on a truck or something, and they closed off streets, and we came down Olive from Glen Oaks, but now it's kind of
Well, they changed it. My son was real active when he was on the Sandoval Dodgers and some other teams, and they get to decorate the truck. They let the kids ride in the back of the truck. It's kind of like a slow-moving parade. Like you say, they close off the streets, but again, it took quite a bit to do. They've compressed the two events together, and they met at Burroughs Saturday morning, 8:00. They had more kids than I've ever seen. This parade went for half an hour. They walked march, and each kid.
How do people on Clark Street feel about that as they're walking down and making noise and people are sleeping in on a Saturday morning?
Well, most of the people were out on their porch clapping and waving, and
That's
I
nice.
think they kind of, they put up no parking signs, so the residents know it's happening. I think they give them some notification, but all the kids, from the little kids playing t-ball up to, the other teams, they're all with their teammates. And in fact, hopefully by tomorrow or when this will be shared, we'll have an article in myBurbank.
Yes,
I shot
working on it right now. In fact, it will be up tomorrow morning. I know it for a fact.
And they presented some nice awards. All the kids, go over to Olive Rec, and they have a stage, and they have some competition, base running, throwing for accuracy. They had 4 or 5 bounce houses. Usually Civitan.
Except, what does a bounce house have to do with baseball or softball?
Well, but it wasn't. It's entertainment out in the middle of the field.
Yeah, to me, it used to be about a skills competition, and I guess
they do that still.
Yeah, but it's not like they used to do. It's very watered down now.
Well, you throw a baseball into a trash can if you can't hit it, But, and I have some pictures of some little kids flying around those bases. They were tearing up the field, I'll tell you. But then they had they got all the kids around the stage to give them their rewards, and they had the character from the Clippers. I don't know what his name is or what is.
I don't know.
Mascot?
Mascot was there.
Not Clippy. That was the little paperclip thing in Windows.
Yeah, that's right. I have no idea.
I don't know.
They had a launcher.
The Clippers are for, right? What the team name is for. They're originally from San Diego, and it's from the Clipper ships, is where the name actually originated from. So, I'm not sure what you would have as a mascot for that.
Well, you can look at myBurbank, and I got some real classic pictures.
Well, I'll take a look at that tomorrow when we put it up.
This guy had a launcher. They were launching shirts out. The kids, there were at least 500 kids on the field, all going for the shirts. And then, like I said, they had competition They also gave some awards to some special people that all the teams voted on, sportsmanship and so forth. And majority of our council and school, our Park and Rec board were there. It was a real gorgeous day, but it was unusual this year. Usually Civitan makes hot dogs over in Jocelyn, but the Civitan group is getting kind of elderly, and I guess they've lost a couple of members. And our good friend Gary Brick and the Civitan hired the Del Wiener Schnitzel.
All right. Wiener Schnitzel. Just Wiener Schnitzel.
Wiener Schnitzel, not Del Wiener Schnitzel. A Wiener Schnitzel truck, and the kids got their hot dog. They got a bottle of water after competing.
Oh, that's great.
And they must have gone through probably 1,000 hot dogs that day.
Well, that's good. That's good
Craig,
for 'em.
I've done some research, and apparently it's Chuck the Condor.
The Condor. That's
Chuck the Condor has a lot to do with the
my
ship.
camera on. There's Chuck the Condor. He's a California condor, which is
Well, he was in Burbank the other day.
it's over here somewhere.
I'm just trying to
There he
understand.
is.
I'm just trying to understand how Chuck the Condor has anything to do with a clipper ship. But what you know what? If that makes
I
people
don't know,
happy,
but the condor is the official state.
Everybody
bird
kind of
California,
wondered
right?
that's true.
who was inside the costume. Well, it was nobody from I asked one of the sports staff. I said, so usually it's the low guy on the totem pole or your new employee that you have to get into a costume. It was the real.
Yeah, and let me tell you, those mascots make a lot of money at pro sports. Believe it or not, those mascots they do well.
Well,
Ever since the San Diego Chicken made it, and the Philadelphia Fanatic started, those people make a lot of money.
Well, I'll tell you, that guy had an arm because he was throwing these shirts a quarter mile for the
Have you
kids.
seen the wingspan of a condor?
But he didn't have the wingspan. He just had a good arm.
Staying in a way in the baseball theme, but something a little more tragic is, a few of us, including Ross, we spotted Andrew Towles in town. Now, if you don't know who Andrew Towles is, he was a Dodger outfielder, and a couple years ago, he had some big hits. I remember he had a big home run in Colorado, and the next season comes around, and he's starting out in the left field for the Dodgers, and I think he had an ACL injury, and pretty much killed his season. And suddenly, the next year comes around, I'm going, wow, how come Andrew Towles isn't healthy and back in the Dodger lineup again? And then we started to find out that he had schizophrenia. And he's had some real mental problems. And he had been found living on the streets and not doing very well. Well, the Dodgers, and I have a lot of respect for the Dodgers for this, they actually signed him to a contract, not to have him play, but so he'd get medical benefits and he'd get help. And
that's great.
They arranged that for him. Well, that was probably 2 years ago, and now I guess he's in Burbank. And Ross, you saw him at BB's Cafe, and
Our friend Doug was in there while people were, he went up to people
Right.
and they fed him. It's real unfortunate. There's a bus stop over by the Dunn Edwards, and I heard the police get called out to him. He was exposing himself, and he was yelling and screaming, and he needs help. He's harmless.
Right, but he needs help,
He
and
needs help.
I'm not sure what the status is now with him with the Dodgers, if they're still trying to help him, but now he's in Burbank, and I feel really bad because as a baseball fan, he gave me a lot of enjoyment, and I really feel bad for what's happened to him, and it's not about the money he made or anything else; it's just about his mental situation.
Well, it goes to show you mental health is very,
Brain chemistry. I mean,
yeah.
nobody knows. It's
It's nice that they offered the contract so he could get benefits, but if he's not able to accept those benefits,
Right.
it's a different story.
And it sounds like how they were dealing with him the other day. Like I said, I heard the police get called out. Some businesses saw him exposing himself, and hopefully the officers out there, these are young
Yeah.
officers. I don't know they would know who he is.
Well, if you see an African American gentleman, probably around 5'7" or so, does he have a beard still?
Yeah,
The beard. I mean, that's probably Andrew Towles, and say a good word to him. Let's hope he gets help he needs. Okay, we are going to be back in a second. We have a quick break for you.
How would you like your business advertised in this very spot? myBurbank Talks is looking for businesses interested in a 30-second spot to appear in our podcasts. If you're interested, please email advertising@myburbank.com, and we'll be glad to discuss all of the exciting opportunities with you. Now, back to our podcast.
And we're back with you for the week that will be. Hopefully you're maybe watching us live on YouTube or Facebook. Our new Facebook page, myBurbank Talks, and our myBurbank YouTube page, and of course, myBurbank News on Twitter.
We're just like everywhere.
Right up there. Right up there.
Look at that. Hi, how are you?
Now back to business.
Back to business. Okay.
Well, Monday, now we're into...
today.
That's right, today.
Today, although it's already happened. One of my favorite commissions, as always, the Sustainable Burbank Commission. They had a 5 o'clock meeting in the Community Services Building. And it was a busy day for meetings. They had the Sustainable Burbank at 5 p.m. in room 104. The Transportation Commission was meeting in room 101. And they were actually supposed to have a Planning Commission meeting at City Hall, but they canceled that. So you still had 2 meetings there. And I can't figure out, with no meetings on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, that why they just can't move those meetings around so they're not all stepping on each other and people have to pick. Which one do I want to see? But once again, the Sustainable Commission is not being recorded on video, so you can't watch them anyway, which is too bad. Anyhow.
But it is interesting reading their minutes a month late.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get to go back and look, if you're really wanting to know, that is one commission that is really working tough.
They're proactive.
Right, proactive.
And that's why my problem with the police commission is. Why can't they be that proactive? Every meeting you're going to see the Sustainable Commission send a letter to the council or a member of the council about an issue, and I think that's great. That's what they're there for, is to advise the council as citizens of the community of what their thoughts and what they think. And I love it.
What did they talk about?
Well, they had a discussion on compostable materials, on disposal and processing. Their ad hoc committee reported back on single-use plastic implementation, and they had their subcommittee talked about greenhouse gas reduction plan also. So, 3 important subjects.
Sure.
And I'm not sure what actions they took because it was tonight, and we don't. Once again, they don't put it on video, so we couldn't see it.
Well, I did get a call from a restaurant owner in town today, and they're talking about eliminating some of this plastics, and
which everybody's for. I don't think everybody's against that because of what plastics are, but it's just what plastics and by who.
That is exactly it. This restaurant owner has made the recommendation. Why don't we get all the restaurants together and have them bring in all their plastic that they use and have the city tell them what they can use and what they can't? Because there's still a ton of plastics out there. That restaurant owner also told me that I did not know, the city gets paid for that reusable plastic. They sell that plastic. So it just doesn't, go by the wayside.
And when besides the restaurants, what about all the catering trucks? What are their regulations going to be?
What about your markets? You don't think about Vons
or you go to Rouse and buy a sandwich or something, and you want some extra mayonnaise or something, and what do they put it in?
There's no tables there, so they're not considered restaurants. But what about? There's tons of places in town. So, and what are the other cities? Are they pushing it down the restaurant owner's throat like they tried to do earlier with the ordinance? And these restaurant owners just are having trouble.
That's something that's got to be solved, I think, more on the state level, because to signal out Burbank restaurants and put an extra emphasis on them with it's going to cost them more money to somehow come up with new solutions. They're going to have to, it's bad enough they might have to get small little glass containers for people's tables, but if somebody says, I want my food to go, well, what are you going to do now? I mean, how are you going to solve that problem without charging a ton of money for some kind of other material? So I think it's a slippery slope for the city to come up with these regulations without, the restaurant owners all being involved and not having a meeting, let's say between, 12 and 4 or something when the restaurants are open. They've got to figure out a day and a time, maybe at night or something, when the owners can get there and really have a good conversation with them, I think.
Well, it's going to be, again, you look at other cities, and Burbank is pretty far ahead. But, again, this is a topic. You talk to restaurant owners, there's not a lot of profit, folks, in restaurants. And when you're making them buy certain containers. Now, I was, in fact, told there's a company right here in Sun Valley that makes stuff that is recyclable, that can be recycled and recycled and recycled, bottle box. And I'm going to do a little research on that. They are a company that will recycle anything and everything, and it can be reused and reused. And
I've also been told a lot of the plastics, though, can't be recycled. Everybody thinks they're going to be recycled. They put them in that blue bin. A lot of plastics can't. We actually did a podcast,
Right.
with the recycling, and they said, yeah, a lot of that stuff can't be recycled. It's just trash.
Well, they say even the little K-cups for your Keurig coffee maker, once they've been used, because of what's inside them, you can't technically recycle those. You're not supposed to put those in the recycle container.
yeah, it's a.
I'm sure the people do, though. And that's why there's people there to have to fish it all out.
So that'll be an interesting one to watch. And like I say, that's an ongoing, something that's happening in the city. And like we say, how you stop at a catering truck that's coming into Burbank? They'll say, I don't want to do events in Burbank. People wonder why the Magnolia Park Nights Out event stopped. There was a lot of things, but quite a bit of them. So quite a few these catering trucks have stopped going to events because of the rules and regulations.
Well, Burbank's making it a lot tougher on a lot of people that do a lot of things lately. I know I'm having the house looked at for Earthquake Foundation, and they told me, well, it's going to be like a $330 fee to get a license from the city of Burbank. They said because you live in Burbank, but if you live in L.A., it'd be online and you wouldn't pay that fee. But because I live in Burbank, I got to pay $330 for a license to have my house bolted down. So that's just a small situation, but I'm hearing it from a lot of people that they put such regulations and things in place in Burbank. It's just hard to have an event. It's hard to do anything. It's hard to open it's hard. And I understand we have a quality of living here, but it kind of cracks me up. And today I was driving up Olive, and I was going over the Olive overpass. And Burbank has an ordinance against billboards. There can't be billboards in the city of Burbank.
There's a couple that were allowed.
Well, yeah, but they're on train property. That's federal property.
No, there's one, Magnolia and First. It's been there for years.
Okay, we'll have to
right
look
over the, no.
I'm not sure it's a billboard though. It's
not anymore. It's
a
where
commercial
they're building.
billboard. But I know there's one on the railroad tracks at Chandler and Hollywood Way, and I think there's one at Chandler and Victory. But it's on the railroad track property, so we can't do anything. So we have that rule, and you can't have streamers and banners up in your business, all kinds of things. And I'm watching today, and they're putting up banners on all the light poles on the Olive overpass. And I'm going, nobody's allowed to do that, but the Burbank is now putting their own banners up when they don't allow anybody else to do it. I got a little bit of hypocrisy there.
The banners on the Olive overpass are promoting Starlight Bowl.
Well, Starlight Bowl, and they're promoting just Burbank. There's two up there now. Each light pole had two banners, not just one. But I just find it interesting that there's not a consistency.
You're talking about a double standard.
Yeah.
That's going.
I think there's a double standard on that one. A business can't put a banner up unless they go get a permit and everything else. Of course, a permit they have to pay for.
It's like a giant homeowners association.
Absolutely. Anyhow, I just was thinking about that today, saying, "Wow, if I had a business, and they don't allow stuff like that on a bit. A used car lot can't have streamers on it.
And to your point about businesses having to foot the cost for get rid of plastic straws and containers and things like that, look at what's happening for the entire state of California. The businesses and people that are leaving the state because they just can't afford to do business here anymore or to pay the taxes to live here anymore. Learn from that, Burbank.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great city. People will pay a premium and do pay a premium to live here. But people have to draw the line, and businesses are going to have to draw the line somewhere.
Well, and the funny thing about that, and I think when you had your photography business, you got a bill from the city of Los Angeles.
Right.
You know, but Burbank doesn't
bill.
have that square tax bill here in Burbank.
Right.
So it's like people say, you have a business here, it's one or the other. You know,
they'll get you one way or another.
And again, the overall point that you were making, Craig, is the consistency.
Right.
You know, and you can't expect businesses or food trucks that are working in 10 different cities throughout a day to completely change and adapt to all these different regulations. You need consistency for businesses to run.
Well, they used to put the flags over the overpasses for July 4th.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've done that for the last couple of years. That is something that's patriotic. And
I have no problem with putting a flag up. I think that's a great thing. But, it's just the banners. I really don't have a problem with them. But it's just, to me, it was just a double standard, in my opinion. Anyhow.
What show was that? What movie? Blade Runner? I remember working on their Blade Runner on the back, and that was done years and years and years ago. Had to be 25, 30 years ago.
Blade Runner?
Blade
That was like 40 years ago.
That's the original, not the remake.
Okay, and I remember that scene saying this is what the streets are going to look like, and the buses are going to be tagged. But honestly, what have we gone to?
Now it's more like the movie Escape from L.A.
Yeah.
You know, it's unfortunate, but whoever that movie said this is what it's going to look like, and it's just eye trash. Why do people want to live out?
It's clutter. Visual clutter.
Yep.
Let's not forget the Omega Man either. Remember the Omega Man where they actually were burning people at the stake on the Dodger Stadium pitching mound?
Geez, well, be patient.
Anyhow, okay. The Transportation Committee also met tonight, and one of the things was they're making a recommendation to the City Council to adopt a resolution for the Burbank Bus Zero Emission rollout plan that the state's doing. So, once again, there's a commission, but what are they doing? They're actually sending a recommendation to the City Council. They're actually communicating with the community council. What's a commission doing something?
Something actionable.
Something actionable and doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, we're happy for them. And once again, the planning commission was canceled. I guess there's no planning. It's just running around, cats and dogs living together as one. Who knows what's going on here?
That might require a plan.
Yeah. Tomorrow night we have a city council meeting, and actually it's going to be the last meeting until the middle of July.
Until the 18th.
Yeah.
July 18th.
Yeah.
The next one after this one.
So that's a while. So if you've got something you want to talk to the council about, you better get yourself over there tomorrow and talk to them.
But there's a couple things on the agenda I think we need to talk about.
Absolutely. They're gonna once again read their second reading of the new ordinance for gun shops about the city regulations about making sure minors can't go in the store and things like that. So I think that's the second reading on that thing.
I think I want to interject. We're looking to have a podcast. We've talked to a couple of gun shop owners, and I want to get their side.
We're going to bring a gun shop owner on the show.
A couple of them.
And we're going to talk to them about, what their feelings about, what all this is going on.
After this moratorium, I've talked, like I said, to a couple. They're probably not going to want to do business in Burbank.
Well, they're the other half of this equation. They need to have a voice as well.
I do, yeah, and that's
certainly willing to have them.
That's why I'd love to have them in.
Yeah.
And get their feelings on stuff.
Let's see here. They're going to vote to upgrade the existing 1,500 watt metal halide ball field lighting at McCambridge Park to LED technology. Now, it's interesting that they want to do that to the ball field at McCambridge Park. But Ross,
I have a problem.
Ross, talk about your problem here on this.
Begin rant.
This is my rant. Okay, you go to the fields where there's a softball game, hardball game, or whatever. They turn on those lights for a couple hours, 3-4 hours. They're putting in LED, which saves the city a ton of money. They run for 100,000 hours versus if you look at the report, and it's a pretty lengthy report given to the city, they've had this company come in. They can tell you the amount of light underneath a ball as it's going through the air. You know,
I think it's the same company that the school district uses for Burbank Borough's baseball fields and for the Memorial Field too.
And
called
part
Lighting.
of it is they don't want.
They're in Iowa, by the way.
They don't. No, oh no, this one's local. This installation company I looked.
Okay, but the company who controls the lights, I think, is in.
Right, but they want to make it so the residents around a park, the ball fields, the light drop off doesn't affect people. But what gets me is we have tons of lights in the park. They're on every single day from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
The parking lot lights?
Park in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
I mean, not parking lot, you know.
No, but the parking lot lights are on.
Well, those too.
Right.
But I mean, in the middle of the park. Verdugo Park doesn't have a parking lot in the middle of it. Okay? And they have a dozen light poles. And why are they not changing those and save the city so you don't have to change the bulbs because these work 100,000 hours, save the money on the efficiency. But I read this whole report. They're just doing baseball fields. Why don't you do them all at the same time, you know, and get this whole city switched over to LED?
Maybe the council's going to ask that question. Is, you know, why just the baseball fields now, or is this, you know, part of an
right? Is this
experiment?
Just the start?
Yeah, is it an
First
experiment?
To try them out, or
yeah, or
I don't know if that is a consent agenda item.
Well, it is, but any council member can say, "I have a question on this item." You know, they can question anything. That's why it comes before them.
But let's see if that question comes up.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that.
You know, because to me that is saving a lot of money and switching over. Because there's my son is in the studio business, and you can't have incandescent bulbs after a certain year. That was, I forget what, you know, governor put that law into effect. So they're going to have to update.
You mean sometimes there's good laws?
Good law. He was my auto shop.
Oh, there you go. Let's see here. They're also going to, I guess, approve the sale of the land at Van Owen and Frederick to that poor homeowner who somehow wound up with City of Burbank land on their property, and it doesn't say how much they're selling that piece of land to that homeowner for, but hopefully it's a price that's not going to be too outlandish. I'm sure it'll be market value.
But it's the question everyone wants answered, right?
Yeah.
How much?
It's a tiny piece of pie.
Now, here's something which we're both befuddled by.
What?
Befuddled. We're befuddled.
Who the heck is he?
Can you be fuddled?
Yeah. Well, they're having a public hearing to rename a portion of Empire to Estrella Way. Now, I'm not. You know, there's a business called Australia Media or something there, and they requested to have the street renamed after their business. Now, why are we going to do that? My
question, and you got that button for that commode thing? Because this is definitely when you need.
You're talking about the.
Well, it was there.
It was there.
Imagine if you will.
You know, I get it. The company. What happens when that company changes ownership in 3 years and it's no more Estrella? Are we going to keep changing street names? Why change?
Right, it's bad enough we're renaming stadiums and ballparks after sponsorship, and then we have to change the name every 10 years or something like that.
What's the most recent?
We have IKEA Way.
Well, IKEA Way, they paid a lot for that. But again,
is there a price?
My question is,
well, the Australian company's going to pay for the street signs. I mean, but the point is that I just
who's going to change all the Thomas Guide maps?
There was a
very good point.
Years ago, there was a developer who came into Burbank, and he wanted to build all kinds of houses up on the hillside. And the city council finally approved it. But one of the things the developer says, we had city council people, Dan Remy, Well, we got Remy. What was it? Remy Way.
Remy Place.
Remy Place. We have Howard
Court.
Howard Court. We have Olney, who was a council member. Stamper.
And if I recall one of those blocks up there, the residents all got together, and they didn't want to live on that council member's name, and they went to the city and they changed one of them, and I don't recall which name it was, but they changed it. You know, and I get, again, the reason they're changing, what was it, Estrella Way.
Estrella Way.
Is, and I think it's so, I don't get it. If you're driving down Victory Place, you make a left on this street, and I know David Crispy explained to me, you can't merge traffic in onto Empire, so they made the traffic, you got to go up an alley to go around. And
I can't figure, you know what, I one day I made that left thinking I was going to go toward the Empire Center or do it on him. And all of a sudden you can't go anywhere, and you've got to make a right down the street, and like you said, go into an alley. I go, this is ridiculous. I go, this is one of the worst planning sections I've ever seen.
Oh, and it's just marketing, right, for this company. So does the city of Burbank now have like a marketing rate sheet for renaming streets?
And in 20 years, if it's called, Toyland, are we going to call it then Toyland Avenue or something? And I mean, where does that stop?
That sounds like fun, actually.
And which business also is going to want to say, hey, I want my street named after my business, and here's the $100,000 to do it.
Well, you're gonna open the floodgates. If you're setting precedent, just
the other night when I was out on that stabbing, I was up on Victory Place, and an officer and I were talking. If you're going westbound on Victory, why they did not take so you can go down and get on the freeway right there, or get to Empire. You can't get to Empire from Victory Place.
No, and that's what I was trying to do. I had to go all the way down to Buena Vista and make the left.
And I will admit I've gotten turned around over there because I thought I would be able to go through a certain way. Nope, you end up on the other side of the freeway. Like I used to be able to go through.
Well, that one gets us, and they're also, and I know they redid the freeway. We don't have the underpass anymore, but they didn't think of this. They didn't talk about this when 15 years ago when they redid the underpass. So it kind of gets me. They're also doing another street on the other side of the freeway.
Part of Stanford Boulevard. They're going to change to Rogers Place, which is near Keeler. But Rogers Place is already an established street in Burbank.
Right.
And they are just trying to, because there used to be a thoroughway there. There's no longer. They're cleaning up. I can live with that. But when a private outside business is getting streets named after them, I'm a little bit concerned about that, and where it's going to lead down the future, and who's going to be next saying, we want our business to be there.
I agree.
Anyhow, they're also going to have adoption of a resolution to establish city objective design and development standards, and adopting the Complete Streets Objective Development Standards. And I'm going to tell you what, I wish I could understand that entire thing, and what they've been talking about it for a long time. They've been taking it to all the commissions and everything else. But whatever Complete Streets is not very clear to me. So I mean, I understand that there's things that I don't understand, no doubt about that. I don't have the degree in engineering, the degree in management of a city, and those things. But boy, that's a huge subject, and I don't understand. When it comes to that entire project, what they're trying to accomplish or what it's all about. Well,
part of when they closed San Fernando Road down, putting it all northbound, is part of that Complete Streets. Doing a lot of things around town.
And the busways, too, I guess, is part of that.
Busways. Again, they came up with this plan, and the previous city council approved it. There's a ton of stuff on it. There's supposed to be some bike thoroughfares. I don't know if you've been driving around town. There is some new green paint on a ton of streets in Burbank, and that is a dedicated bike lane. They're up on San Fernando Road. They're on the Burbank Bridge now. I've been driving around, and
have they fixed the Burbank Bridge bikeways? Have they actually done something now to address that?
Like I said, if you go over the Burbank Bridge, it's now green lane, and it's very clearly marked for bikes. I know I've gone into other cities, and that is in Santa Monica, in Glendale. They're all over. So they are doing something, but the street plan is a big project.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, the next meeting's not till July 18th, so you got something to say, you better say it now. Wednesday, the senior citizens said, you know what? They said, we don't have nothing to recommend to the council. We're going to cancel our meeting. So the senior citizen board meeting's been canceled on Wednesday. Thursday, the firefighters, which have been, they hired 21 recruits, and now they're ready to graduate 15 of them. And that's going to be on Thursday morning at the Starlight Bowl. There's some new paramedics included. We are going to have a great story and video on the entire ceremony. Looking forward to it, and welcoming 15 new recruits, probationary recruits into Burbank, who it's going to take them 1 year before they actually become a firefighter, because they have to go through a 1 year probation. But we are looking forward to our newest firefighters and to bolster our department.
Well, they've gone through a 16-week training. Burbank trains their own firefighters. My son lives over near the training center, and every morning, 6:30, those guys are out running their miles. But
and they've come a long way, because we used to photograph their graduations at the training center.
At the training
now
center.
They're at the Starlight Bowl.
Yep, they moved up to the Starlight Bowl, and we're going to have Ashley as our reporter. I'm told there's going to be a real nice affair. These guys, it's hard to become a firefighter, and Burbank, again, we heard that the police department, they just don't want to find people to keep warm seats. These guys, if they've lost 5 or 6, and I know they lost one female out of that. They had one female apply and go through. She didn't make it, which is unfortunate. We still have one female firefighter that's a paramedic now, and she might even become a chief someday.
And just to clarify something you mentioned in passing, when they're graduate from the academy, they become probationary firefighters. They're not recruits anymore. So they'll be firefighters officially when they pass probation, but once they graduate, they go from
and a lot of them don't make it that first year. There's some that don't make it the first year. Not a lot, I should say.
That's what probation's for.
Yeah.
It's a training period.
Well, they get assigned to different rigs and so forth. And like you said, I know the fire department is honoring some guys that have been on for 30 years that are retiring. We have a couple of new paramedics that have just completed their medical training. They're going to be out. So it's a big ceremony, and we'll have it hopefully by the end of the week.
I'm just really glad the city council had stepped up and really taken care of our firefighters. I think it's important. And I bet you a lot of those 15 who make it are going to be around for the 20 years, 25 years now, instead of taking off after 5 years.
Hopefully these are career firefighters from the city of Burbank. Now, maybe I missed it. Maybe one of you mentioned it. Is this, since it's at the bowl, is this open to the public?
No, I don't believe it's an invited, invite only. But we'll have coverage of it, and
we're going to do a video. I hope we have the video up by next week, so it'll be good for you.
Good for them.
Also, we got one of our advertisers let us know that starting Thursday, actually it's already started, but on Thursdays, they're doing Ross, go ahead. In fact, Ross, go ahead.
Taqueria.
Yeah.
Taqueria.
Thursdays.
What is what's a taqueria? I'm not sure what a taqueria is, but
it's a place you get tacos.
Oh,
exactly. And it's Tequilas Cantina and Grill, who has been one of our faithful advertisers.
Absolutely. One of our favorite places to go. One of our favorite places to go and eat too. We love the food there.
Well, I went last Thursday night. Patricia, the owner, said, "Come on, stop on by." I'll tell you, got all choked up over this one. Bacon wrapped hot dogs.
Oh.
They had El Pastor tacos. They have a musician.
You know El Pastor tacos are, don't you?
The religious ones.
The religious ones, right? Yeah.
The Pastor tacos.
This hasn't happened yet.
The Pastor.
It started last Thursday. So
it's starting, so it's going to be a weekly.
Yeah, it's every Thursday night. So stop by, let them know you heard it on our podcast. And
I always like to plug Tequilas. They Thursday nights is this new, how is it, Craig?
I'm sorry, what? You lost me at bacon.
Taqueria Thursday,
Taqueria Thursdays at Tequilas.
They have a
Cantina
mariachi band.
Yeah.
Saturday they have music, and Sunday they now have music.
And a brunch too, and a great brunch.
Oh, it is. So
I know where I'll be. And if you go, tell them myBurbank sent you.
that's
Absolutely. Let's see here. Thursday also, the City of Burbank's having their last forum number 8 of 8 of the District Formation Community Forums. And this is going to be on Zoom only from 6 to 7:30. You go to the city website and get your Zoom information there. And you know what? Ask your questions. And I would also ask them why they have on their website that the City Council has transitioned.
I'm distracting you by laughing. I'm sorry, but the way you get so wound up about these meetings.
I just hate the fact that they're putting on their website that the City Council unanimously agreed to transition to council-based elections when they haven't. And to me,
get worked up, doesn't it?
And paper straws. They're transitioning to paper straws too.
Yes, try to have a chocolate milkshake with a paper straw and see how far.
They're gross.
With that.
Not chocolate milk shakes, but paper straws are gross.
Yes.
Friday, another one of our Burbank iconic businesses, Romancing the Bean, is going to be celebrating their 30th anniversary from 4 to 6:30, and they're located over at 3413 Magnolia. And I think we'll have some city officials there and everybody else, and it's going to be a big shindig
from 4 to 6:30.
I talked to the owner today, Carrie Kroll. Carrie started 30 years ago. She can't believe it, in a little tiny place across from Warner Brothers. And she lived in an apartment above the coffee place that was over here, and she's moved around a couple of places. She's a lifelong Burbank resident, and she kind of put this, Romance in the Bean. There were a lot of people that didn't like Romance in the Bean a couple of years ago. There were some business owners along Magnolia. Our old friend Mike Nolan took quite a bit and abused some stuff that went on there. And it's nice to see. You think Tequilas is west of Magnolia, Romance in the Bean right east of Magnolia, of Hollywood Way. But she's offering, if you go between 4 and 6:30, I talked to her, and she's got a feature.
4 to 6:30 p.m.
Yes.
It was a.m. I mean, that's your prime time. It's the middle of the day for you.
Right. She is offering, let me see, if you buy a cup of coffee, you get one for 30 cents. Now, for a custom cup of coffee, one of their...
The second one's 30 cents?
No, buy one coffee.
Get one for 30 cents.
For 30 cents.
So another one.
So you have to buy a second cup.
For 30 cents.
For 30 cents. You tell me where you can get coffee in this town.
I don't drink coffee. I wouldn't know. I would think.
Oh.
There will be a string quartet.
I can walk to the corner and go to a Starbucks because they're on every single corner, whether you want them there or not.
Well, you know what? Before all those Starbucks that were in this town,
there was Romancing the Bean.
There was Romancing the Bean.
And there was Priscilla's.
And also they're going to be giving away some gifts. I talked to Carrie today. The chamber's going to be doing a ribbon cutting. The city officials will be there. Hopefully this week we'll have a little article on Romancing the Bean.
Okay.
Drum roll.
And our last event is on this coming Saturday, which is an interesting event.
Now, I want to ask Craig Durling on this one. Craig, dig. Can you break that one down for me, please?
D-I-G.
What's it stand for?
David Ida George. Delta India Golf. To be honest, I know you're joking because right before we started recording tonight, I asked you. I'd looked into it when I saw the rundown, D-I-G in all caps. So what do the letters stand for?
And I went to the city website, and they do
it's
not
not
say
there. I went to the city website, the DIG website, and I found nowhere where it said what the letters stood for. So looking at the pictures, people digging up weeds, I thought, well, maybe it's just dig.
So you want to break down,
I don't know.
Craig, what
if you know, go ahead and email myBurbank.
Absolutely. And people are going to all bring their shovels and their weed equipment and it's going to be
gardening gloves.
I think we need to at least put out there.
It's going to be like Eddie Albert, isn't it?
Have we explained what the... Green egg... Oh, my mic was off.
But you know what? Several years ago, the city had to stop using certain pesticides. The weeds got pretty bad and growing. So what they have done is, and I know for a fact, my son does his own gardening. It's very therapeutic. And there are people that want to help out the city. They some things they like to do. They want to bring their trowel, their gloves, and help for a couple hours weeding a couple of sub-park properties.
Yeah. And good hobby, and it's good exercise.
Out vitamin D. They're asking for volunteers. I think, and I will say that there are a lot of weeds. After our rainfall, that we had, there were weeds growing on the center divider down Glen Oaks.
Well, anyhow, they want you to volunteer, and you can sign up in advance, or you can just show up as a walk-up volunteer, and clean up litter, weeding, mulching, all sorts of stuff you can do.
And you could get to their website through the city's the official
absolutely.
City website for more information.
So bring your tools, bring your shovels,
and your 30-cent coffee for romancing the bean.
There's a lot.
That's for 2 days.
You think of this week, the week that was, the week that will be. We're a busy city, but where else can you find this information out? That's why we do this podcast.
Absolutely.
All consolidated here, myBurbank Live.
That's right. You could watch us. You could listen to us. You could, as you're doing your laundry or vacuuming your house, you could put on your headphones and find out what's happening in the city. You move here, you live here, you work here. You know what? We all love to be here. And that's why we're doing this podcast. We're getting a lot of feedback from people that are enjoying to find out.
We do the best we can. We're not professionals. Don't try this. Don't try this at home. I guess we are trying this at home. But,
somebody's home.
Somebody's home. So hopefully everybody enjoyed our show. Craig, Ross, thank you very much for stopping by. And
absolutely. I'll switch my camera on and then say goodbye to everybody. Thanks for having me.
Okay. And those listening live, thank you. And if you're not listening live and watching one of our recordings, we appreciate it also.
Send us your comments. Send us your notes if you want to know something.
Absolutely.
If
you
find out what DIG stands for,
send it to us. We've had people come up to us at events that say they love listening to us. We found when we were offering things, we had people get up at 8 o'clock the next morning and want to know what the show has.
People are going to start looking for you at events now, though, because we started doing the live recordings at these remotes at these events. People are going to start expecting us to be there.
Our next live show is going to be at the Historical Society, I think on July 15th, I think it is, in that area. Yeah, we're going to be there live once again with our setup. So,
and like I say, the commercial said it earlier. If your business or you are offering something, you want to get some advertising, our rates are very, very inexpensive. You can find them online. We have a media kit online on myburbank.com right at the top. You could look what our rates are.
And email us about the podcast. We would love to have you doing a 30-second commercial on the podcast.
Yeah. While in the middle of our podcast, we will put together, we have the voice.
And I'll read it.
There you go. Craig's here, and he's our voice. And, again, hope you have a great weekend. It's going to get warm. Drink a lot of water. And that is, I think it's it for me.
We'll talk to you next time.
See you later. myBurbank Talks would like to thank all of myBurbank's advertisers for their continued support. Burbank Water and Power, Cusimano Real Estate Group, Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, Burbank Chamber of Commerce, UME Credit Union, Tequilas Cantina and Grill, UCLA Health, Gain Credit Union, Community Chevrolet, Media City Credit Union, Eric Garcia of Farmers Insurance, Providence High School, UPS Store on 3rd Street, and Hill Street Cafe.